Thank you for joining us for the latest episode of the Secure Connections podcast. This channel-focused cybersecurity series is brought to you by IoTSSA, the Internet of Things Security Services Association. As always, I'm your host, Brian Sherman, Content Director for Get Channeled and IoTSSA, and joining me today is Ted Roller, Channel Chief for mailprotector. mailprotector lets MSPs deliver a full arsenal of cloud-based email security, management, and hosting services to their business customers. So without any further ado, let me welcome to the Secure Connections podcast. Ted, welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I look forward to a fun discussion on little channel history and value, and a lot of discussion on email and email security today. So I know you've been actively involved in the IT channel for a long time. First as an entrepreneur, building a successful MSP from the ground up. And then over the past decade or more, you've served as a channel champion for several well-known vendors. The industry connections you've created over the years are obviously invaluable, as is your insight from sitting on both sides of that table, MSP and the vendor side. So based on your experience and conversations, what ways do you think the channel has changed over the last few years, and what do you see over the next few years happening? How are we transitioning into the future?
Well, any number of things have happened. I think first and foremost, you can't underestimate the value and the impact of the change to the industry that's come as a result of having cloud-based technologies and having MSPs who struggled for a year or two to figure out exactly how they wanted to deliver cloud to their customers, fully adopting cloud-based solutions and going down the road with them. So cloud has changed the way MSPs go to market. And probably the unintended change that I'm really excited about is that cloud deliverables became pushed MSPs towards delivering more consultative value as opposed to technology value. And now, virtually every event I attend and every opportunity I have to talk with MSPs, the questions are less and less about how does the technology work and more about how I can provide value to my customers from a consultative perspective, how I can help them make money, how I can help them save money. And even more so than that, how I can actually get them to value the consultative deliverables that I have and actually pay me for them. That's an interesting challenge for MSPs. MSPs have historically seen a problem, solved a problem, and then build for solving the problem. The future that I see is the consultative value where you see into the future, you identify the technology needs for the company, you help them get there. A lot of MSPs have given that expertise away over the years, and now they're learning that they actually can bill for it. They're just trying to figure out exactly how to do that.
What do you think are the biggest opportunities for them in that billing perspective as a consultant?
I think it raises their game. I think it raises the value, and we've seen MSPs over the last 10 years drive towards a more and more consistent deliverable. They are rolling out like networks as often as possible to their customers and supporting those networks in a way that just makes sense for their business. They're able to consistently deliver higher value. When you add the consulting piece, when you add focus on for various verticals, you suddenly have the ability to drive the direction of the company, learn as a result of those efforts what direction is best for that vertical that you serve, and you're able to more effectively serve that vertical moving forward. It's a very, very powerful thing to walk into a customer site and say, yes, I've done this 7 different times before at 7 different clients. I know exactly what the roadmap looks like. I know exactly where you need to go from a technology perspective. Now, let's talk about where you want to take your business, what your personal goals are, and line that up with our experience having done this in various and assorted spots and deliver real value to you that you can see year after year. It empowers the MSP, and at the end of the day, it empowers the customer. It creates a much, much stickier relationship. Why would you ever walk away from somebody who's got the roadmap for success for you? Most times you wouldn't.
Excellent point. So what are the biggest challenges facing MSPs today?
I think actually it's really all around deriving a value for those services that their customers can see ahead of time, because historically MSPs have, and before that, solution providers and VARs, et cetera, and so on, have given away a lot of that technology virtual CTO value as a way to sell their services. When you flip that script, you've got to educate your customers on the value of those technological services. I've worked with a lot of MSPs on exactly how to change that conversation and how to create documentation and roadmaps and so on and so forth up front that you actually give the customer after they have signed an agreement to work with you as a virtual CTO. And that seems to be helping. It seems to be changing the conversation a little bit about what the overall value proposition is of the MSP and what the customer can expect from them.
So essentially, the value proposition for an MSP is kind of switched to where they were using the conversation and the consulting to drive hardware sales. And now that the hardware sales have diminished or gone away in some areas completely, they need to get back to billing for that advice that they were giving for free before.
Absolutely, but the cloud model and a lot of things that are happening in the industry have changed fundamentally the value of those virtual CTO services. Suddenly, instead of just dropping in networks, you're out there evaluating cloud-based solutions, bringing them to your customers, and it's not just line of business solutions. It's every solution under the sun that your customer might need or be able to take advantage of to create competitive advantage. Everything is out there, and it's in many ways a click away, but configuring it to work together, creating integrations, driving a value proposition that just makes a lot of sense. That's hard work, and it's derived from serious expertise, and it's something that people really need to pay attention to and value.
Well, the security conversation has definitely changed over the last 10 years. How big of a factor is that in the equation that you've laid out?
It's a huge factor. I mean, it sits as an underpinning of every other single thing that MSPs do. If you can't solve for the security equation, then there's no reason anybody will ever trust you for the rest of the conversation.
That's an excellent point. We'll dig into that a little more further along too. But one thing I wanted to ask you is I've seen a couple of industry experts, and I'll keep it as, there's a lot of discussions that go on in the channel, but a couple have suggested the SMB channel will disappear or end up significantly smaller in the next decade as kind of a further extension of innovation and the tech-savvy generation takes over. What are your thoughts on that topic?
I think that is laughable, to be perfectly honest, and I'll tell you why. My experience with this industry in particular is simple. Small businesses take care of small businesses. Larger businesses take care of larger businesses. That's the way they like to work. And historically, the SMB MSPs have done a fantastic job of taking care of their SMB customers. The SMB market is growing all the time. There are more startup companies in the world today than there ever have been. Technology is driving a lot of that. Remote work is driving a lot of that. The ability to create value and everything else that technology has put in front of small business owners makes it easier to get into business. And so the demand is going to continue to be there for technologists who can help make those small businesses successful. It ties back to our other conversation about delivering strategic value, because while this next generation may very well know how to use their computer and know how to get around in the cloud, they certainly don't know how to connect apps and drive the value forward that is going to make them competitive against others. That's where MSPs come in. That's where MSPs will always come in. The MSPs may consolidate some. They may get a little bigger, and some of the smaller guys may go away simply as a result of not having the ability to extend the consultative expertise into the SMB customers' problems. But by and large, I think the MSP channel is going to be very, very healthy moving forward.
How does the roadblocks for building a managed service business? I mean, quite frankly, the bar was lowered for the investments required over the last 10 years. that we've been in the channel. Do you think that helps spur new tech people into becoming MSPs and seeing the business opportunities with a lot of the small business customers?
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure. What I think I'm seeing mostly in the industry right now is that people are coming into the technology industry from other areas of expertise. They're bringing their verticalized knowledge into the industry. And now that they have cloud-based solutions that they can bring along with them, that they don't have to package up and unpackage and install and deal with in all those ways, their value from a business operations perspective is significantly increased. It's easier to get into business that way, and it's easier to drive value in a niche that they're already super familiar with. So it's easier, but not necessarily just because the technology is easier. It's easier because a lot of people are able to bring real vertical expertise together with technology in a much simpler fashion and go down the road.
That's an excellent point. I know I was reading a forum this morning. I think it was a Facebook forum where someone was asked to come in and talk to a small business that wanted to get rid of their IT team still. And the whole discussion about, how do I do that and how do we replace that's still an ongoing discussion, but the demand is there for businesses to expand their IT skill set. And many of them, even if they have a help desk person on staff, they don't have that diverse skill set that an MSP can bring to the table.
It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And as costs continue to be driven down, I really think having an on-premise, locally hired technologist is truly a luxury in the SMB market today. It's expensive. It is hard to keep those people trained and, quite frankly, to some extent, trapped in a single network when the opportunities to get out there and with an MSP explore a bunch of different networks and opportunities and deploy new technologies. There's just so much a richer environment. It's hard to keep somebody internal, and trying to do so can be a huge risk to your small business.
Excellent points. So let's shift back to present day channel opportunities, because we've got a lot to discuss today. Email is one of those technologies that we almost take for granted. It's easier than ever to use for most people. Maybe not my mom, but for most people. Thanks to smartphones and tablets, people can access their messages from almost anywhere, anytime today, which is really cool. But with new cloud solutions targeting business, including Office 365, Gmail, does email still present a viable business opportunity for MSPs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. It's a great question. And one of the things that most technologists know, but the public generally doesn't, is that SMTP, the underpinnings of email, drive virtually everything else in the space, all the other technologies and so on and so forth. So, today, your email address is as much a part of your identity as it is anything else. When you go to log into some site, sign up for some service, join a cloud software company's capabilities, you do that by and large with your email address. So email is important. Plus, email is one of the biggest doors to security threat that exists in the market today. I haven't seen any floppy drives on PCs lately. People aren't installing CDs. Some drives still exist, but people are by and large afraid to use them. Email and web-based traffic are the two ways that organizations are being threatened from a security perspective. So having viable, trustable, secure email solutions it's more critical today than it ever has been. While it looks like a commodity, it's really, for MSPs, it's a ubiquity. It is a tool that every one of your customers has. You can't do business without email. And so the ability to deliver email in a more effective, more dependable, and more secure fashion for MSPs is a huge advantage, and it's something that they can play off of. The differentiators are really fantastic when you pull back the hood and look under the covers a little bit.
I know today we have more ways than ever to communicate to beyond email. If you take email out of the equation, you've got Slack and Skype and texting, and there's a variety of ways. And I think the perception, at least when you talk to a lot of the younger people, is that emails kind of going away, or they're not as reliant on it as they were before. But one thing, looking back, worldwide email use is expected to top 3 billion users by 2020, which is not very far away. I think that was Radici Group survey that was done recently. They also showed 86% of professionals prefer to use email for their business communication. So that perception doesn't always get out there. I think people think we're used to it, we've had it, and how prevalent is it? But it seems like email continues to grow. And not only does everybody use it, but to some degree, they're valuing email even more than before. So how can MSPs best support their clients' email usage requirements, kind of reinforcing that to say it's important and here's what we need to do driving forward?
Yeah, I think it all ties back to security. First of all, understand that the more effective your clients can be, the more that they can do, the less they have to think about associated with email security, the happier they're going to be, and the more effective and productive they're going to be.
Right.
So having a suite of email security services that simply make sense and are easy to use and solve for compliance problems, and basically leave your customers with a sense of trust every time they sit down at Outlook or Google or whatever their email client is, whatever their hosting service is key value to MSPs. It starts with just having a simple, easy to understand quarantine that is controllable and valuable at the end user level. It extends into being able to send safe and encrypted email. There is not a person out there in business today who doesn't have the need for an encrypted email solution at some point in their day-to-day work life. Sometimes they don't realize that there's a need, and sometimes they just click send and hope that nothing happens. But there are needs out there for encryption. There are also huge needs out there for archiving. And it's one of the places where MSPs can kind of scale up a little bit into larger customer segments, because there are a lot of compliance requirements that require archiving, and having that as a deliverable is both a great way to make money and a great way to establish a foothold with larger customers who have to face those compliance requirements.
Excellent points. Now, one thing too I mentioned earlier, Office 365 is kind of that big transition point we're seeing right now. The adoption seems to be elevating the email security conversations in the channel. Obviously, there's a lot more to email security than just getting an Office 365 account, even though many end users might not realize that. How are successful MSPs using these migrations to improve their client success, Ted?
So we actually, at mailprotector, we love Office 365. We think it's a fantastic product. We think it is absolutely the way most MSPs should go from a hosting perspective. There is a ton of value built into it, and it's just an absolutely great solution. The interesting thing about Office 365 is that it's, in many ways, it's a very consumer grade product and doesn't give end users the opportunity to see what's happening behind the scenes at all. Whether it's just from a quarantine perspective, when something gets quarantined in Office 365, from an end user perspective, it just disappears. It just goes away. And the tools to support things like encryption and archiving are pretty fundamentally consumer grade. So successful MSPs and our partners, honestly, are having a great time going in and driving Office 365 business services, basically, is how they're describing it. They're going in and they're layering email security solutions on top, or actually underneath, Office 365, giving their customers the ability to see what's happening with their quarantine, to see why things are getting quarantined, to leverage encryption solutions, to leverage archiving solutions, to actually back up their email and get 30-day shadow copy in the cloud type of functionality. All of that stuff that doesn't exist with Office 365 is still a requirement, still a need. In one way, it values what the MSP brings to the table, because all that technology just isn't available to the end user by and large. But it also allows the end user to know what's happening when everything doesn't go perfectly. And that's pretty important. We see about 53% of the emails that go out these days are going out or spam, and we're blocking that 53% of the traffic that's out there. That's a big number. It's a big risk, and it's something that MSPs need to pay attention to.
That's an excellent point. I think that layered security message is obviously in the channel is strong, but the reporting and the visibility seem to be an area where you not only show the value that you're providing to the customers, but also be better on top of any potential issues that may be popping up. One thing, I've been to at the IoTSSA cybersecurity roadshows and several other events. You suggested MSPs could use email security as a spear to attract new clients. I think you alluded to it a little bit, but can you kind of go in a little more in depth on that concept?
Sure, absolutely. So security is really where you differentiate yourself. And quite frankly, security is what most end users feel like they know the least about and need to know the most about. And in fact, they don't really want to know. They just want to know somebody else is paying attention, taking care of their security, and that their threat profile and their posture is good. So one of the things that's happened with mailprotector is over the last year, we launched a product called Bracket, which is an email encryption solution. And we did a lot of really cool things with Bracket, but email encryption for end users is a huge challenge. A, it's hard to use. But more importantly, B, it requires your recipient, your customer, your business partner, whoever's receiving your encrypted email, to jump through hoops in order to actually open the encrypted email and get the message. And that can be difficult. And when you're in a situation where A, you have to learn how to use it, B, you have to sign in and remember your credentials in order to be able to use it, C, you send it, and then D, your customer has to go through that, customer or recipient has to go through that whole mess again. It's not a very user-friendly situation. So what happens is your customers, business clients, employees are just not using encrypted email when they should. With Bracket, we have shown that you can actually make encrypted email very, very easy to use. In fact, so easy. I had an experience not that long ago, a few weeks back. I was selling a building, and the title agent who was working with me was asking me to send information over, including social security numbers and everything else that I wasn't willing to send outside of an encrypted email.
Sure.
So I used Bracket, which was simply a matter of putting brackets around the subject of the email I was sending, and sent her all the information she wanted. I called her the next day and said, "Did you get all the information?" She's like, "No, I haven't seen an encrypted email from you." And I said, "Did you check your spam filter?" She said, "Yeah, I couldn't find it anywhere." And I said, "Well, okay, remind me again what information you need." She goes, "Well, I think I've got it all now." I said, "How?" And she said, "Well, the email that you sent me had all the information." And it turned out it was the encrypted email that I had sent her. And the use case experience for her was so simple. She said, "I didn't have to log in or create an account or do anything. I just clicked a link and I went to a website, and all the information was there." And I said, "Yeah, you want to do that some more?" And she said, "Absolutely. Tell me where I can find it. How do I buy this product?" And so it just turned out that we have an MSP in the area who I've worked with before, and who's a Bracket reseller. So I connected the dots between the two, and he's off to the races selling Bracket to her, which will lead to additional technology services. It's the tip of the spear. There's a second little thing about Bracket that I want to point out, which is really, really cool. When one of your customers sends a bracketed email to their recipient has the opportunity to click on a link in the Bracket system that allows them to get more information about Bracket. And a lot of them do that. And when they click on that link, that information doesn't come back to us. I mean, we know that it happened and we have it stored somewhere, but our sales teams don't touch it. what happens is that information about that potential client is sent directly back to the MSP who sold the original bracket account. And the MSP, has the opportunity to go out and introduce themselves to a customer who's already interested in the product that they have to sell. It's viral in nature. It helps people grow. And I've had any number of MSPs. One in particular came up to me at DattoCon not that long ago, gave me a big hug. He was a little drunk at the time, so it was pretty funny. But gave me a big hug and just told me how much he appreciated Bracket. He said, "We're just going to make a fortune with this. It is changing the whole paradigm for us around encrypted email, and that changes the whole paradigm for us around ease of use, and that whole thing makes us much more valuable, and people are just talking. So we're winning with it."
So they make a margin on selling it as well as it becomes a lead generation tool for an MSP.
And that's absolutely what MSPs should learn to expect from vendors who are focused on this market. It is the vendor's responsibility not only to give you the opportunity to make money, but give you the opportunity to grow, protect your brand, and drive your business forward. Because when MSPs succeed, focused channel vendors succeed as well. That's what everybody ought to be doing, and that's why we're doing it at Mail Protector.
So Ted, you've and the Mail Protector team has been generating a lot of buzz in the industry and racking up a lot of awards at channel events. Obviously, it sounds like Bracket's part of that, but what else is behind that success?
It's an interesting attitude towards a couple things. First of all, the company, from the day I came on board, and even before, the company leadership had made a conscientious and considered decision to focus entirely on going to market through the channel. And while there was some legacy end user business that existed, we have, every time we've had the opportunity, turned that legacy business over to an MSP in a local or regional market, and have otherwise let that business shrink in favor of working with channel partners exclusively. We're so very close to being completely and exclusively channel partner focused. And certainly all of our sales and marketing efforts and all of our support and all that stuff is focused entirely on the channel. So you kind of have to live that in order to provide that kind of high level value. And I know our channel partners, our MSP clients or partners, have seen that we're dedicated to that. Secondly, and feel free to test this out if you're listening out there, our support is second to none. We absolutely do an amazing job of taking care of our partners from the very day they sign up with us through the next 90 days while they're training and getting up to speed. They have a dedicated rep who helps them, walks them through the entire 90-day process, helps them sign up their first customers, et cetera, and so on, do transitions, do integrations, all of that stuff. There's a team dedicated to doing that. And then we have a support team that just is, moments away, always answering the phone, always delivering value, super highly trained. Nobody's overseas. That's a concern for some MSPs. Maybe it should be, maybe it shouldn't be. But while everybody speaks with a little bit of a South Carolina accent, it's still English most of the time, and and they really care a lot. So the support is excellent. The dedication to channel is excellent. But the third thing, and the thing that I really, really value about Mail Protector as a channel chief, is that the company is completely dedicated to raising its game from a product perspective every single month. So every single month we are developing new solutions. Every single month we are expanding and listening to the MSP community that we've built, and we're making Mail Protector better every single day. And it's a commitment. There is no profit taking, no mentality of, okay, it's built, we'll just keep racking in the dough until we have to fix something. We're actively growing what people can do with email and email security, as opposed to sitting back and assuming that it's a commodity and that we don't have to do anything. And I think that more than anything is what's driven so many MSPs to choose to vote for us in various and assorted trade events, and and it's very much appreciated. We work really hard, and we love it when somebody says, "Hey, we appreciate it, we value it, we love what you're doing."
Excellent. Any final things that are next for Mail Protector you can share at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been in a little bit of a holding pattern while we get ready to launch a completely revitalized console, which is, not only the technology that you see, the face of Mail Protector to all of our MSPs, but it's also a lot of the engine underneath it. And this new console it's been a long time since we've done this. We built it very robustly in the first place, and we're doing exactly the same thing again. Our growth has been significant over the last couple of years with channel partners. We need to do this, and when it launches, it's going to give us the ability to roll out other new technologies, new functionality, new capabilities, a lot of malleability within our portal or our console. All of that stuff is going to be hitting the shelves, so to speak. We don't have any shelves, but in the next couple months, and we're going to really leapfrog ahead of all the competition from a functionality perspective, but more so from the ability to add features and drive innovation much faster than we've been able to do it in the past. And honestly, I think we were sort of leading in the past anyway. So it's going to be that much better, that much more empowering. And we're going to give MSPs what they want because we're listening every single day. We document everything we hear. And we've got a lot of things that we're looking forward to doing over the next couple of years that will make MSPs really the only place to go for email security. And that's what we're open for.
Excellent. Obviously, I'd love to go all day, but we're kind of to the end of our time here. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with us today, Ted?
Sure. I want to point out, and this may seem a little bit like a shameless plug, but IoTSSA has really done an amazing job of driving security education to MSPs, many of whom sorely need the direction and the opportunity to learn more about what their security responsibilities are over the course of this first year. I mean, IoTSSA is a fledgling program, and it started out good, but it has just gotten better and better, and is driving a fantastic security education platform to MSPs all over the country. I'm just super impressed with the quality of the speakers, the quality of the education. I was at an IoTSSA event in Colorado last week, and if I heard it once, I heard it 20 times from MSPs in the room. Oh my God, this just scares me to death. But now I know what to be afraid of. And I'm excited about that as much as I'm still scared to death. So just a big thank you to the team at IoTSSA and obviously to you, Brian, for leading a solution and a value proposition that is really having a positive impact on how MSPs work.
Well, I can say on behalf of the team, thank you, but that's actually quite fun to do. The feedback we got from last week's event's been tremendous. So to your point, is security can be a little scary, but it's a huge opportunity for the channel. So I'm looking forward to continuing that. So with that said, on behalf of IoTSSA, I'd like to thank Ted Roller of Mail Protector for joining us on today's episode, as well as those of you who tuned in to listen to our discussion. Please take a couple minutes and check out all the great cybersecurity content on the association's website, which is IoTSSA.com, and let us know how we can help your team improve its cybersecurity skills and portfolio. Thanks again, and have a fantastic and highly profitable day.